YouTube comments from a video titled, How a 1/8 acre garden feeds a family of 6 ALL year. Part 4.
David 2206 wrote,
Well done. I grow sweet potatoes in 5-gallon buckets using the methods in all my secrets of organic and container gardening, so far without any problems at all. They do amazing, and it is a lot of fun to turn the buckets over at the end of the season and find all the potatoes. Most folks don't know that you can eat the leaves, too, and they are good in a stir-fry.
At Michael Bus Driver 9992 wrote,
If your family doesn't like radishes, try letting a few go to seed and form seed pods. They are very edible and taste like edamame with a mild peppery hint. Also, to naturally feed your soil, try biochar, which you can make over winter indoors.
At Polony Artificate 1657 wrote,
Try cutting radishes in half-toss in oil and roast. Delicious changes taste as sweet and mellow, similar to roasted turnip, but even more mellow. Also citric acid, additional man-made citric acid in drinks and many products negatively affects my bowel disease and can trigger an attack.
At Bruce Matz 5015 wrote,
In the 1980s and 1990s, I had multiple raised garden beds in the backyard of a Baltimore City row house. The house's structure shaded the upper 1/3 of the 19 wide multiplied by 62 long yard, essentially rendering the 20 closest to the north-facing rear wall unusable for anything other than very shade-tolerant plants. In addition, there was a 2-wide concrete sidewalk that split the backyard into a 4-wide strip of potentially arable land on the east side of the sidewalk and an 11-wide strip on the west side of the sidewalk. That being said, I had less than 350 square feet of usable growing space to work with in the form of several narrow 1-deep, wood-sided raised beds on the east side of the sidewalk, one huge 9-wide multiplied by 27 long multiplied by 2-deep raised bed in the center of yard on the west side of the sidewalk, and one 18-deep multiplied by 2-wide multiplied by 11 long bed where it butted up against the chain-link fence at the bottom of the yard at the edge of the paved alley. Incredibly rich soil that was heavily amended with peat moss, perlite, vermiculite, coarse sand, greenstone, basalt dust, azomite, lime, broken bags of potting mix from a nursery, bagged manures, and most importantly, shredded hardwood leaves 130 multiplied by 30-gallon bags worth for the main bed. The first fall when I established the bed prior to planting for the first time the following spring was the key to that tiny garden's success. Those shredded hardwood leaves were the single most important factor in maintaining the garden's soil's fertility. The ability of the plants grown in those beds to fight off pests and diseases was almost solely due to nutrients that those shredded hardwood leaves contributed to the soil biomes in those beds. Those leaves encouraged healthy mycorrhizal fungi colonies to develop, and the mycorrhizal fungi were essential to plant health. All of the beds were intensively planted at John Jevons' How to Grow More Vegetables Than You Ever Thought Possible on Less Land Than You Can Imagine, and Mel Bartholomew Square Foot Gardening. The mature plants with their close-spaced plantings effectively shaded out most weeds. Weeding took less than 5 minutes per day after work in the evening, and was accomplished with a pair of 12 long, stainless steel, surgical tweezers. Soil moisture losses due to evaporation were minimized with mulches composed of shallow layers of fresh grass clippings or finely shredded hardwood leaves. Those raised beds with their limited square footages produced an enormous amount of fresh vegetables. My mother and I planted 16 square feet 4 multiplied by 4 of Blue Lake green beans with 9 seeds planted per square foot per Mel Bartholomew's planting suggestions. We did so based on the harvest estimates on the seed package. We ultimately harvested so many green beans that we quickly ran out of the ability to eat them ourselves. After several weeks, we couldn't give away any more as every relative and neighbor refused to accept them. We ran out of freezer space after blanching and freezing approximately 30 quart-sized Ziploc freezer bags worth. I ended up having to purchase a 21 po in T5 quart all-American pressure canner in order not to be forced into throwing the second 2/3 of the season's harvest away. I estimated that we harvested close to 15 times the projected harvest totals listed on the Blue Lake green bean seed packet. The same thing happened with virtually every crop planted, with only a very few exceptions. We purchased 4 black beauty eggplant transplants from a local nursery. The plant tag stated that one could expect no more than 4 to 5 full-sized eggplants from each plant. We both loved fried eggplant served with applesauce. We figured that the expected total of 16 eggplants would be spread out over a long enough harvest time that would allow us to eat them all before becoming tired of fried eggplant. Much to our surprise and astonishment, each of those eggplant transplants yielded close to 18 full-size black beauty eggplants, as well as approximately a dozen each undersized but fully mature eggplants per plant that ranged from 1/2 size to 1/3 size of normal. Once again, as with the green beans, we gave away as many eggplants as we could, not very many, and ate eggplant until we were sick of it. I did learn to make barbare ganache as a result of the overabundance of unexpected eggplants.
At Kimberly Komala 8080 wrote,
I love this collaboration. A side note, I didn't like radishes, but I learned that if they are roasted, they become milder, and I mix them into my potato dishes for enhanced flavor. Yum.
as Simeon Snakeman wrote,
Sweet potatoes are high maintenance? False. Treat them like garbage. Dehydrate them, eat the vines, give them some sandy soil. Provide nutrients early and then let them ride in well-drained soil.
at Rich Vang wrote,
I learned so much today. Thanks. I just bought a little farm in Portugal where I will be growing cherries to sell wholesale, but now I can see how much I can do with a tiny bit of land next to my house. I have about 3/4 of a hectare. I will keep watching and learning.
at 7 Johnson Strong wrote,
What a gem this video is. Thank you for creating and posting it. I love that you went through each section and how the crop is plentiful. I love how you would pull weeds here and there, say you ran out of compost and grass clippings, and showed us a mistake or two you made. It's these moments that show the authenticity of the content of the video. Thank YOU for your honesty. Also, thank you for your knowledge, experience, wisdom, and instruction. I have a family of 7 and want to do this, but modify it to fit our location because Ohio is not Florida. Godspeed your crops for many years.
at Outdoor Traveler wrote,
Everything is so full. Like the freezers are full. How do they rotate so they're eating the oldest thing first? Why aren't some things half eaten? I'm very confused.
at Weizhong 9337 wrote,
We have 8 garden beds. We have tons of harvest this year, and we could not finish them. Our fridge is full of tomatoes and beans. Haven't bought veggies since April.
at Great_Filter wrote,
When I was a child, our family had domestic livestock animals that needed a lot of food, so we kept a big garden. Now we don't raise animals anymore, and with better seeds and fertilizers available, we no longer need such a large plot. My father gave me a section of the garden where I can experiment freely, whether with asparagus, physalis, daikon, or other crops we've never tried before. If something grows well for 2 years, and we actually eat it regularly since sometimes half the harvest just goes to waste, it gets promoted to the main garden and eventually go to the farmer's market.
At Natalie Manor 4458 wrote,
Good to find you. Great info. Did you say Berlin seed for the wire square cages? If so, I could not find the product in their online store. Thanks.
At Asify 8423 wrote,
Thank you for sharing your growing knowledge. Can you also please shed some light on how you water, like drip system or sprinkler, since everything's scattered? Also, how do you sow your seeds, like manually, or do you use some tools to sow seeds?
At Deed 6759 wrote,
Very smart couple. Working together. Have not met a man that energetic. I am the energetic one. I do all the planting, harvesting, processing, and freezing. I wish I had learned to can. Bought 2 cancers, water and pressure, in hopes of finding someone who still cans and was willing to share that knowledge. Freezing works for me now. I have no young children. When I was younger, I used to watch my mom and grandma can. They threw us kids out of the house while they did their thing. But I love to plant and garden.
Chronovect wrote,
I freeze a lot of food as well. Bread can keep up to 4 months in a freezer. I have tested it successfully for 6 months, but not longer than that.
Tudbergs wrote,
Hi, I'm from the UC. Do you do any recipe books on Etsy that I can purchase and download? We are trying to eat more veggies, but just can't find anything that's tasty. If you don't, please think about it.
At Mike Porter DF5VL wrote,
I grew up on a small farm in lower mid-Michigan, and had a nice garden growing up as a kid. Now I'm 63. After having a slip and fall accident off an 18-feet roof, my body cannot handle the frigid temperature and heavy snowfalls. That's why I'm going to move to Tennessee in 2 years after I sell my property up here. I'm buying 3 small lots, about a quarter acre each. One is actually level enough to put a house on, the other 2 are hilly, so I want to use one as a big lot. The other is too steep to do anything except for harvest the trees and use for a camping site from when I go fishing, which is right across the street from my lake. But this video was very informative. It gave me quite a few tips on fall harvesting for fresh vegetables. I'll be putting a lot of tips else seen on this video into my garden plots. Thank you for showing people how to be more self-reliant and less dependent on the big stores.
At Automation DND wrote,
I have trouble with citric acid myself. It's not an official diagnosis, but yeah, so yes, store-bought products can hurt sometimes. Time management and ALOTLLET once for a newbie. This is only the second vid of yours I've ever watched. And as I was watching my first of your videos, you were talking about and showing a few of the things you do, talking about self-sufficiency versus community. Why, oh, you are the first lady that I ever truly said to myself. And this was when you were doing some nice cabinetry. I'm watching you plane down some wood. And I said to myself, holy crap, this chick is more of a man than I am. Purely BC, you seem to be so dang competent in so many areas. I was seeing you birthing calves, making furniture, sweet talking a herd of goats, planting, harvesting. So I said to myself, holy crap, I was just amazed at everything you and Morrison farmers too. Amazed at all you guys DO and Morrison farmers. The vibe coming off her is that of a very, very busy, competent person too. Zalent vid.
At Ethan Adams 8165 wrote,
OMG, I had a bag full of dried beans and was dreading shelling the things. In fact, that is what has kept me from growing them for years. This trick worked perfectly. I had the bag shelled in 15 whacks.
At user GJ8MS7JD8V wrote,
Not for nothing, but Ohio has the best farmland soil in the country. Every basil plant we get dies within days no matter what we do. I'm envious. / look at that broccoli.
Prancercat Y5Z wrote,
May I suggest a wire rope going across the middle of the front of shelves to avoid breakage if have an earthquake or movement, and helps stop the food falling off the shelves and breaking. Also wrap the glass jars in paper if they touch each other.
At Frank X6R5L wrote,
Anne, do you use more than one Jackery to power all your freezers? We have 5 stand-ups and also do an enormous amount of work to fill them with our produce and meat we get from organic farmers. I did a deep dive once, darn it. Can't find the cheat sheet I wrote up on it. Anyway, it would require a much bigger solar generator or one for each freezer to keep them cooled down in an extended outage. We've learned so much about how not to do this. We were once out for over a week and tried using a small gas-powered generator to keep them cold. But it takes way more power to drag the temp down once you've made the mistake of letting the temp rise too far. So, how do you do it to keep them all cold? Many thanks for this great video and introducing me to Mothan farmers who are just a couple of hours north of us in Ohio. Frank and Marsha Lazyby Farm, Ohio.
At Nikki Jack 911 wrote,
Love this episode. Few questions for anyone experienced. 1. Anyone know YT channel with disabled limited mobility homesteader self-sufficient types? Number 2. I know cold frame is usually close to the ground. Can it work elevated, like raised 22 inches, guessing it depends on climate? Thank you so much. Debating on buying home in rural MO, or property and having layout where I use gentle hillside to layout accessible root cellar, like home in front, root cellar in hill, or hilled earth behind. I can do gentle grade and some stairs, but it'd have to baby Bjorn any crops. Or use something similar to dumbwaiter if I found a place W basement.
At Jenny Aduso 7438 wrote,
Have you ever tried growing potatoes in a 5-gallon barrel of sawdust? You don't have to dig them up. You just dump the barrel out and pick the potatoes out.
At Kathy 2940 wrote,
I would have to hire people to make the beds and buy the soil for the beds. I have to buy organic spray because anytime I try to grow things in containers, they're either attacked by blight or pests. And of course, you have to put some kind of fencing around it so you don't have it eaten by animals. It cost a fortune for me to grow a garden. I don't have the money.
At The Hatebringer 8005 wrote,
This was very inspiring. I am getting ready to start my own garden myself, and it's nice to know that maybe I can eventually get to the point of growing everything we need for the year.
At Yuki 2587 wrote,
Radish haters in the family? Roast a pan of vegetables, the usual suspects, with olive oil, salt, and pepper. But don't tell them that the pan is 25% radish. The texture changes and the sweetness comes out. And don't forget radish leaf soup.
At Redaredinamianly 8429 wrote,
You have given me a lot to work on. I live on 1/5 of an acre, no grass, just desert dirt and no trees. I'm trying, but I put this on saved to watch again and again to plan for next year. My granddaughters will love helping me shell beans next year.
At Silly Goose 2619 wrote,
I wish I could do this, but I have no way of doing storage at these levels. No basement and no room for extra fridges. So awesome though, I'm trying.
At Bell and Harris, 8174 wrote,
Sweet potatoes love warmth, so the raised beds may help them be warm. Here in upstate SC, they grow crazy. If I left them alone, they would cover everything. I have to prune the greens back so I can find everything else in the garden, including paths. I also have raised beds. I don't think they would like the heavy clay, but they are not fussy for me.
At Surathing 2.0 wrote,
Do I live in an apartment in the desert? Dash, yes I do. Did I watch the entire video? Yes I did. LL. Wishful thinking that I'll get a garden somehow. Vegetables and fruits that are trucked in miles away are the worst.
At Heather Carter 9741 wrote,
Great tips from a fellow Buckeye. I learned a few things. I've been saving for a jackery. We had a power outage last week, and unfortunately, I think our eggs in our incubators aren't going to make it. Today is day 18, so I guess we shall see.
At Tanya Briggs 8969 wrote,
For the woman saying her family member has stomach issues with canned stored tomatoes, it might be the calcium chloride that often is used as firming agent. In U.S.,
At Ohek 5570 wrote,
Get your kids to scoop up peanut butter with radish slices, and they will change their minds. You don't taste radish, but it is such a crisp base.
At Lurksin 1 wrote,
Awesome video. Like the realistic stuff lol. I grew up where nobody knew anything, did anything, and always just barely survived. Becoming an adult in that environment was rough.
At Nitsofancy wrote,
My husband is diabetic. We learned to cook radishes like we would use potatoes in a roast. They lose their color and harshness as they cook. They taste like cabbage when finished, and if cooked extra long, they will fool people to think they are roast potatoes. We love them.
At Ollie's 71 wrote,
My issue is I literally have no cold storage at all. No basement, and a 1300 SQ FT house. Trying to solve storage for canned goods is difficult, haha. I do have a garage, but it is not insulated and gets very cold in the winter and very warm in the summer.
Steph Pett wrote,
This is a wonderful use of Mother Earth and your life absolutely fantastic. Great job, guys, but why no rosemary in the herb garden? A rosemary is fantastic for cooking in many dishes, and it has terrific medicinal uses too. And it's SOOO easy to grow. Please add rosemary to YOUG Beautiful Garden. It will help you soothe you.
At Fiddleback 27 wrote,
I had some friends that planted cucumbers, green beans, and carrots right in their lawn. Just to say, they ended up being swamped with those vegetables, constantly trying to give them away because they couldn't eat all of them.
At pot _it_like_it's_ hot wrote,
This is amazing. Love to see this. I have recently just finished the base that will house my new greenhouse, and then I can start growing again. I can't wait.
At Tesson 58 wrote,
I'm glad to hear someone talk about the difference between growing a garden to have fresh food through the summer vs. growing a garden to have food all winter. It is different how you choose seed varieties when you harvest, how you store food. It is also different for people growing for farmers markets, CSAs, and farm stands. I suppose you could do all of it, but Hugh, lots more work, and there are only so many hours in a day. I love your garden and your growing season, much longer than mine, but not tornado country. I'd need to have an underground shelter barn big enough to have all my animals in if there was a tornado. It's a great video for those who live where growing seasons are long. Sadly, that is not us. We usually get 60 to 75 days without frost. I do poke holes in my carrot bags. I wash them outside, then let them dry well before bagging them. They'll keep a year in the fridge. I find that some molded without a few holes poked in the bags. I store onions after curing in a back room in boxes or braided up. My back room is pretty cool in the winter, probably more like your basement, but dry. Squash and pumpkins the same. After curing, I just put them on a shelf or table in the back room. I think that one thing that people don't realize is how much longer well-chosen homegrown produce will last. You can't put a squash from the grocery store on your shelf in a room and have it last a year. Who knows how old that squash was when you bought it? Also, I try for varieties that have excellent storage. I don't try to store something like Walla Walla sweet onions or a potato with poor storage life. I'm impressed with what you are doing, and it's also wonderful that your children are learning these skills as well.
At Christina Cantrell 4823 wrote,
Where does she buy bulk supplies? If only I could do this. I'd love to spend a summer with either of these magnificent women. Then maybe I could grow a garden. Every year my gardens were destroyed by blithe. I even tried buckets. Nothing works for me.
At Arniacando 6846 wrote,
Nothing eats your pepper plants, the worms or something let me have no peppers, it just destroy the whole plant when it starts budding, I spray and nothing helps. So frustrating.
At Margaret Cole 3244 wrote,
I'd put those beans in a sealed bag and pop them in the dryer on air dry. You could do several bags at once. If you don't want freezer burn, use butcher paper, wrap it twice.
Cookie SR50B wrote,
I chop and freeze my peppers. All types can be frozen. Grest used in omelets, soups, stews, and side dishes. I'm impressed with all you have done. In a small plot, you can grow a lot. We tend to want big yards, but never grow anything for food. Such a blessing for you.
Dishif wrote,
What a great vid. Having both of you discovered separately on YT, know to see you in the same clip is awesome. Both of you are super inspiring.
Speak Faith and Life wrote,
Wow, this is such a heartwarming and perspective-changing video. Never ever have I imagined or wanted a garden or a life like this, but now, well, I do, and the seed of a dream has been planted.
At Canadinthua 5100 wrote,
I don't know why folks are surprised by her ways of farming, because this is how it is done all the time in the so-called developing world. Even much way better, sorry folks.
At A Love Supreme 8603 wrote,
Now we know why children are disappearing. They are being used for slave labor, whacking pillowcases full of beans for harvesting. All sardonic nests aside, astonishing how this family works. Together so well, each having their own jurisdictions, etc. Thank you for sharing this knowledge of how you grow in such small spaces and all that entails.
At Gerard Hogan 3 wrote,
Greetings from Australia. Well, you have done a really good job. It is bloody well so organized. What impressed me is that everything is neat and tidy. I reckon you both have what we Aussies call a fair dinkum garden. Great stuff.
At Multipleaser wrote,
Love your video. My mom grew up a subsistence farmer in the Ohio/Indiana flatlands, but she left home at age 18 and never looked back, so to speak. No green thumb. One question. Did Miracle Grow turn my tomato plant leaves blue, or is it some kind of blight or fungus? Tomatoes are fine, delicious, and red. But all the leaves have a bit of blue tint. And did 6 weeks of cold/dry weather make my cucumber plant dry up, or was it the Miracle Grow? I'm guessing it was the cold weather. It still made a couple humongous cucumbers, despite looking like it was all dead and decaying.
A JSB6QE wrote,
Ensure that house and basement are bigger than mine family of 6 me 2. Your basement is just full of food. You must have plenty of room. We take up the main floor and the basement just for bedrooms, and they're all small and think my house is from the 60s or older.
Adjust Me Way 508 wrote,
Thanks for sharing all of this. I've grown cannabis my entire life, and that naturally got me into growing everything else and just gardening altogether. Then my mother had a massive stroke almost 2 years ago now, and wanting to provide her with more healthier food whenever possible, I have been trying to slowly grow more and more of our food. So seeing all of these ideas and techniques is awesome. So thanks again for sharing. It's amazing content. You guys are incredible.
Abimini 1216 wrote,
Thank you for showing the old ways. This is so much better than big box or market food. Humans are meant for this. And it gets people off Netflix and device and making a difference in your life. Please teach the next generation the things I knew as a kid in the 1970s. We had gardens your parents told us toddlers to pick weeds out of. And we ate it later summer. The sun was setting, playing in the backyards, checking on tomatoes or whatever. Bring back that era.
At Stephen Fulton 2968 wrote,
That aha moment. At Hardee's, I was taught that you never store lettuce above your tomatoes in the fridge. When tomatoes off gas, it can rot the lettuce.
At Roscoe 8485 wrote,
Why do you separate beef, chicken, and pork in box freezers? We don't do pork hole, people, but what about seafood? And what is better, upright or chest freezers?
At Svensson 8234 wrote,
I love radishes chopping the whole thing, leaves and all, into a salad, onto a mash, or pretty much anything savory pizza, curry, a sandwich, pasta, soup, etc., is the best. Paired with some spring onion/chives, it's a total win. And the nutritional profile of radish greens is equal to that of spinach with the amazing win of less oxalates. Radishes all the way.
At Freedom's Promise 8519 wrote,
I figured out soaking beans 48 to 72 hours in water in the refrigerator knocks out 99% of the tummy trouble. I change the water 2 times a day. They start to sprout. Very tasty.
At Forte Homestead 2839 wrote,
Such a great interview. A collaboration of younger people taking charge of their food, working with reputable companies for purchasing and utilizing what they have to improve health and food security.
At Vic Ranger 6876 wrote,
Well done, and my sister, and I grew up in farm environment. This young woman has a better understanding than I do, and I benefited from her knowledge in video.
At Bruce 2288 Evans wrote,
18-inch below ground is not below frost level in at least 1/3 of the United States. There's a reason water lines are buried between 3 and 5.
At Most Definitely 6737 wrote,
Question. I'm very green when it comes to growing crops, and was wondering what you both do to prevent insects and rodents from eating up your crops. Historically, I've had a huge field mouse issue.
Dari B5G wrote,
Have a way to filter the garden water.
After the Helene disaster flood, a lot of water wells and rivers were contaminated. The mulch brought in to replace topsoil was not tested. Had weed killer man-made chemicals. So when vegetables plants get a certain high, then die off. Your land can get wind drift chemicals. Have a way to cover your above-ground garden plants for protection from solar flares, toxic man-made chemicals, weather control, insects, hail. Plant extra for the bugs and wild critters. Just make little gardens in the woods or along the roads for birds and critters. Hard-skinned squash is best to have because after cure lasts. No freezing or cost of home can. Less hard physical labor to just cure and stack. I do not waste garden space and my labor to grow sweet corn. All the wild critters will eat up the sweet corn. I plant sweet corn for wild critters along the woods. Try different seeds to get ready for climate changes. I have several patches of wild artichokes planted in public places. Most food is not covered on a home insurance policy. Most off-grid power systems will break down. Your generator electric can kill a person doing electric line repairs. This is one of the best correct information about preserving garden food.
Собака Роман Зе1, Зе2F в рот. Eljmaski wrote,
I have been watching Michelle and Cody and you for a couple of years now. Very cool to see you collaborate. I have learned a lot from both of you.
Esprigsra wrote,
I'm from a rough part of Washington, D.C., so that means I don't have a clue about gardening, let alone growing a plant. I now live in the suburbs. Talked about growing some food with my wife. So much information here that I feel confident that I can start. You guys are amazing.
At Hansen 710 wrote,
Freezing the food changes chemistry. You will see some vitamins getting almost removed and others will get more. We just did some studies in Denmark. DTU did them, and you get lower amounts of vitamins from eating frozen, and it should be avoided if there is any access to fresh greens. The taste change also tells a lot. Most greens get more boring, and it can be tasted by many people that it was frozen only fruit sugar taste. Better when frozen chemistry. Your berries will get sweater from cold fruit, does not lose the healthy parts like greens does.
At King 489 wrote,
This is normal in Eastern Europe. You do not need a lot of land to grow food. And it is true that with just a few acres, you can produce tons of food. You just need to learn how to take care of it. Save seeds for next year's crop. And prepare the land with natural fertilizer after summer has finished. It is easier than people think.
At Gowist 5145 wrote,
My garden is really helping out now. I got lots of tomatoes this year. I juice them and make lots of tomato soup. It is very healthy and free food.
At Just Me S6S4M wrote,
Why on earth does the USA continue to put power lines on poles and constantly talk about power outages due to storms? Put the power lines in the ground where they belong, and that problem goes away. I live in Europe, and we barely know what power outages are, and have probably only seen them in movies from the US or documentaries about third world nations.
At Scruffy Gaming 627 wrote,
There is no way in hell that garden feeds 6 for a year. Edit. Okay, I watched the video. Lol, I'm still not convinced. But that is an insane amount of food from that area, so maybe.
At Activated Living Farm wrote,
So cool to see two of my favorite homesteaders together.
and two techniques that I desperately want to combine as well. Too lazy, so organized, I need this combo to work. Michelle, it would be great to see a layout sketch of your garden/plot sizes for each crop and bed, as this is what I'm super struggling with. I've gone the food forest wild route and plant everything everywhere beauty like you say. I'm struggling one, with planting enough of each staple and to the harvest being just random. I'm considering creating another terrace. I'm in Spain, and making beds/plots for staples while growing my perennials/fruit trees and medicinals still in the food forest/grocery row. I am so unorganized, always one step behind where I should be. 2 years in. Was you always this good like 2 years in? Is there hope for me yet? Just got my first freezer full for this winter. Have knee basement though, and in Spain it's hot, so yet to figure that issue.
At Jackie West 2817 wrote,
Love how you are able to grow lots on a small plot. I too grow lots. Just curious, how do you stop your broccoli from going mushy when you freeze them? What do you do with frozen broccoli?
Farmer Wayne 1404 wrote,
So it's funny how you say sweet potatoes are princess. I grow butternut squash and sweet potatoes next to each other. But back to the SP, I stick them in June and water for about 2 weeks. Once they take root, I do nothing but keep the weeds down a bit. Before our October frost hits, I harvest them. I typically get 5/6 bushels from 2 65-feet rows. About 2 to 2 po in T 5 pounds per foot. Your gardens look great.
At RRYL8ZR wrote,
I'm a little thrown. Maybe I did not hear him right, but I thought he said he heavily insulated all the walls, including the outside walls that are making contact with the earth. When you want the outside walls that are contacting the earth not to be insulated, so the cold from the earth can come into the room, but then heavily insulate the ceiling and the two inside walls that are just in the room making contact with the room air temperature.
At Dark Ice 77 wrote,
I have a 1-acre food forest full of everything that will grow in Nebraska, and it produces a little over 10,000 pounds of food a year. I donate almost all of it because it's just there for survival reasons, and there is no way I could eat that much. I make food bars out of the hazelnut powder, different fruits and leaves. Kind of like fig Newtons. Then I can or dehydrate some. Next spring, I'm adding a couple hundred more hybrid hazelnut bushes as borders to clean up the look of the whole thing. Anyone with a normal-sized yard can make not just a garden, but food-producing trees. Sime things like sea buckthorn, which is invasive and easy to grow, and produces tons of food. The berries and leaves are super healthy. The berries and hazelnuts alone make a complete protein. They both have almost all the essential amino acids. Combines, they have all. You can laterally live off those two things alone. Bing cherry trees can produce up to 500 pounds of cherries when paired with a black tartan cherry as a pollinator. It becomes a super producing combo. I have 12 Bings and 12 black tartans. Gardening is great, but it's a lot of work. The trees take very little effort. Water and mulch is all. A good trick is to bring in more pollinators by putting flowers everywhere. Gardens and terrors, even though they flower, they don't really bring in the pollinators. I surround everything with pollinator seed packets, and when I started that, my production increased by like 10 times. A pepper plant that would normally produce a dozen peppers would produce 50 to 60. Bringing in massive amounts of pollinators is the best thing you can do.
At Deborah Dykstra 8703 wrote,
Incredible tips. My mom grew up during the Depression, and her family did most of these things. Once, when the whole family had been out, they came home to discover that someone had broken in. After looking around, the only thing missing was some canned goods. My loving grandma just said if they hadn't been really hungry, they wouldn't have done this. And that was that. It's wonderful to live with that kind of security.
At an era we will never forget wrote.
During the growing season, can you tell me what was the lowest and most importantly, the highest temperature growing tomatoes? I'm having big issues growing tomatoes and have had issues for quite a few years now. It gets real hot here 38 to 43 C. In the last few years the temperature has been so unpredictable.
At Zuhalter 0071 wrote.
We've been gardening for a few years. We're still arguing about how to portion things out. My wife gets mad because I say, plant less tomatoes next year. We have mason jars full of tomatoes and throw the rotten ones at the trees. Green beans are an issue too. Like, we can only have stir fry so often. Potatoes were good this year. Probably the most balanced, what we want to eat. Strawberries were excessive for a month. But we got jam.
At Floritry Fiction wrote.
If anyone has some good vegan fertilizer options, please let me know. I have notifications off, but I will probably check back another time. If you pitch in, thank you so much.
At 2009 Worst Year Ever wrote.
Maybe this sounds kind of stupid, but do these high yields also have to do with soil quality and other stuff that didn't make it to the video? For example, my grandparents had a bit more than this lot for their home plot, but their yields were much lower. The potato yield especially kind of shocked me because I definitely remember a bigger field yielded a lot less stuff.
Chrysical wrote.
In addition to the Jackery backup system, there are battery alarms for deep freezers, in case the chest or the outlet goes down to save your food supply. For those unaware,
At Jones 4079 wrote.
Amazing work. My goodness, I'd love to be able to do this. But in our area, deer, rabbits, and squirrels would raze all that to the ground. Doesn't look like you fence anything. How to keep the vermin out?
At Dustin Apk wrote.
Holy cow, what a great video. So much valuable information. Someday, I'll have a homestead with several other gay guys and we'll strive to be a portion as cool as this.
At Ranjamprakash 2521 wrote.
Thanks very much for this video. I have learned a lot from it. My concern is, though, about the electricity bill, since you have to use a lot of freezers. Does it still economical? Or it does not matter, since you get to consume homegrown and chemically free food?
At Greg Vasquez 777 wrote.
One of the better DIY preppers. Still not enough to keep up completely with a fam of 6's average eating for a year. I think having like-minded neighbors nearby sharing duties to make it fully is likely the answer to survive long term. It's a lot of work. You can't have full-time jobs and farm to feed a family at the same time.
At Goconnor 5460 wrote.
I watched the whole video, and I didn't hear her mention owning beef cows until the very end, where she shows the soap. Where does she keep the cow? Also, did I miss the part where we saw her chickens? Other than those questions, it looks fabulous. Such a creative and smart young woman, and with 4 kids to homeschool. Super wow. I like the dynamics between the two of you. She is what I imagine your daughter would be like. Thanks for showing us. I am here today.
At Mionomo 1216 wrote.
One of my new favorite greens is sweet potato leaves. Delicious when sautéed in a little garlic and olive oil. Seems like a lost opportunity throwing those in the compost or to the goats.
Akalu 3408 wrote,
How can she be so young and have perfected this lifestyle? What does she do to resist bugs, disease, and mildewy issues? These things make gardening so difficult.
At user Hertz7KV6JS6L wrote,
I love watching both of your channels. This was a great collaboration of both. My garden is in Zone 10 ASW, Florida, where I mainly do fall and winter gardening.
At Sherryberry2394 wrote,
Nice. I have a bunch of trees, however. Wish I could see a show where you deal with shade. Too expensive to remove in North Florida, and most are pine trees in my neighbor's yard.
At Frankie4007 wrote,
I'd love to follow someone similar in the humid South for the storing ideas. We don't have any cool, dry places. I was thinking fridges and freezers, like you said. Even dry beans don't last as well.
At Maffishful wrote,
I bought my house last year and was so excited that it had a fenced-in garden with things growing in it. Well, our soil is terrible, and the only things that grew really well was my green beans. I am so sad, and I really don't have the money to buy a truckload of good soil. Ideas: I live in northern Wisconsin and we have sandy soil, and I have no access to grass clippings or lave, just pine needles.
Kabadjua wrote,
Oh my goodness. Thank you for saying multitasking is a myth. I could not agree more and always try to spread the word. Love this episode so much. So inspiring for all kinds of families and living situations. Thank you both for sharing.
At CatDenning6535 wrote,
I have a small garden plot and I'm looking to expand it. Figuring it all out has been challenging. I have the land, but my soil is very heavy clay, so most of my success has been with raised beds. Right now, it's mostly tomatoes, onions, carrots, rosemary, green beans, and peppers in one bed and zucchini in the other small bed. I've learned many lessons, but I only started gardening 4 years ago. I am terrified to start canning, but want to. I plan to make ketchup, but if you've never canned before, it's really intimidating.
Sue Gilstrap wrote,
Eat the radish pods. You can also pickle them. Since I discovered this, I always let my radishes go to seed to eat the pods. So much more food and delicious.
At Texas Chick 6153 wrote,
If I understood her correctly, she said her tallow comes from her beef cattle. As a rancher, you're not raising cattle on 1/8 of an acre. Just saying.
At Chernigast 6754 wrote,
I would have loved to have done all this. I fed my brood of 3 kids plus spouse and myself on a partially shaded 1/4 acre. It can be done. Never got to do cattle, but I loved my chickens.
At Naturescape Studio wrote,
Like to know where in Ohio. All we have is clay, so nothing will grow here in the ground. And that is way more than 1/8 acre. Try that in a backyard. We have so many pests and disease that it is a constant battle in just 6 raised beds.
At Alan Thompson 2970 wrote,
I would have liked to learn how such young people learned these skills. They must have had great parents. Sadly, my nematode-filled soils here in Florida could never produce such abundance.